Let's talk about muscle contraction. If you remember before we left, we had these little kits that we put together, and we were talking about all the different steps of how a muscle will contract and then relax. That's what we're going to be talking about here. That's going to be the bulk of your exam that you're going to be taking for exam 3, which will be online now. So before we get into it, what you're looking at here is an axon. An axon is something that's in the brain, but it'll go all the way down from your spine to your muscles and touch the muscle itself and tell the muscle when to contract and when the muscle to relax. So we're really going to focus on that end. We're going to get to the axons in the brain at another time, but right now what we're going to be really concentrating on is how a muscle contracts. So we're really just going to focus on that. Another thing I want to show you is, so here's our axon. At the end, it's called our axon terminals, or it's labeled here presynaptic cleft, which we'll talk about in Unit 4, but you can see these little ends. And these ends are going to connect to a muscle, in our example, and it's going to tell us what to do. So we talked about the axon, so that's what you're seeing here, the end of that axon. And this is going to be those axon terminals that we talked about. And so this is one of those ends of that terminal. See how like here they kind of look like little bulbs? This is that bulb end of it. So what you're seeing here is this thing called a neuromuscular junction. Here's the end of my neuron, here's my muscle, and here's a little gap, so neuromuscular junction, or where they come together. And if you look at the real example here, these pink things are the muscle. These guys over here, that's going to be my neuron, so neuromuscular junction. And then even in this little cartoon up here, you can see the neuron, a little spot for that junction, and here are the muscles. If I wanted to move something like an egg, I'm going to only activate one of these neuromuscular junctions. But if I was going to go ahead and pick up something like a heavy brick, all of these neuromuscular junctions would be activated. So they'll help us with touch, help us if we're going to do a light touch with like picking up an egg, or a more heavy touch with picking up a brick. So this is my axon terminal. This is my motor end plate. This is my synaptic cleft, which is that gap between the axon and the motor, or the muscle. These are these vesicles. These vesicles are designed to be filled with hormones. Our hormone that we're going to concentrate on is acetylcholine, because acetylcholine is responsible for conducting and relaxing that muscle. So we're going to make sure that that is the only neuron that we talk about. Next time around in Unit 4, when we get to Exam 4, we'll talk about a whole bunch of other hormones that could live in there. Here we have a little gate. So this is going to be a little door that only opens with volts, which was going to be our action potential. So it's a voltage gated, so a gate that only opens with electricity, and that electricity is going to be called action potential. And it's going to allow calcium in. So it's a gate that only opens with action potential and allows calcium in. We have a gate down here, which is going to be called my ligand-gated sodium channel. So what's going to happen is there's going to be a lot of sodium that sort of sits in this spot, and sodium is going to rush in and allow us to do some other things that we'll talk about soon. And it's called ligand. Ligand is a fancy biology term for key, and it's ligand-gated, so it's another door that opens with a special key, and when that opens up, it allows sodium in. The special key is going to be that acetylcholine, so when acetylcholine comes in, it's going to open the door, and when acetylcholine is gone, it's going to close the door. And then there's 4 steps in excitation, so in muscle contraction. So I'm going to do that in another video just because I want to take my time with it and give you some time to first thing know all the parts, and then in the second video know all the steps and how they run.